Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Steve. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Greetings from Nashville.
Especially during your big week there in Nashville. Thank you.
All good.
Thank you very
Paul,
much, sir.
Yeah, Paul, I echo what you said a little bit ago, which was that the industry overall is feeling a resurgence. I look back to where our sport was, I think motorsports in general, certainly in this country, and you think about what has happened since 2018, it's just a significantly and incredibly gratifying place to be working in motorsports. Because I know, particularly domestically here in the States, 2018 was a low point for us. But you've seen what's happened in IndyCar, what's happened in F1, and NHRA, and obviously NASCAR in this country. It feels great, right? And I was at a sports industry conference yesterday in New York City, and motorsports or NASCAR, we were the belle of the ball, which was, we certainly couldn't have said that in 2018. So yeah, I echo your sentiments.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. I think what we could do here is, if we have an outage, I could be the meat puppet that takes the questions from via text.
Please do. I mean, like I say, I'm looking for the backup right there, and I went and made a quick change on something, and hopefully it's going to stabilize my signal. The one thing I was curious about, Steve, is that we talk about the next gen car, is that what about the changes coming up here in 2023, and reading recently how Garage 56, the Le Mans project that NASCAR and Hendrick Motorsports and Chevrolet and pretty much everybody's working on, that there may be some improvements that are learned from that effort.
Yeah, I think just to go back, Jeff, to I think what was your original question around the next gen car. I think the next gen car was, as I said, it was a bold play. Going to the LA Coliseum in February of 2022 was, it wasn't assured that car was going to be ready. We had supply chain issues. There was no backup plan. We had no cars that were going to roll off, a Gen 6 car that it wasn't there. It was either this car or we fail. And that was, this time last year, there were a lot of sleepless nights for a lot of people who work in NASCAR, because we weren't sure it was going to be right, frankly. But our race teams did their job, and they put things together. And that's what this industry does, I think, better than anything. When things are hard, this industry does extraordinary things. And then when things are not hard, we try to figure out how we can shoot ourselves in the foot, but that's a different thing altogether. But with respect to the Garage 56 car, I think, Jeff, and as well as anyone, we are constantly iterating on our vehicles to make the racing better or safer, which is what we're doing right now. So the first order of business was make the rear of the car, softer is the wrong word, but to have that crush panel in the back.
Yeah, a little bit more compliance,
Right. So it would, the energy transfer would not be transferring to the driver. It was getting into the rear of the car, into the rear clip. And so we've made some modification with our race teams. That was job one. And we're excited about that, because the safety of the car was critical. The car was designed for safety in mind, but it was designed, kind of first and foremost for catastrophic injuries, right? So that you'd saw like a Ryan Newman at the Daytona 500, or Joey Logano at Talladega when he got on his roof and the roof crushed. So that was first and foremost. So we made the car significantly stronger. But as a result, the rear of the car, which was a little bit shorter, we had a miss there. We didn't realize that the drivers would feel the impact of the rear of the car as they were. So the drivers learned to try not to, as odd as this sound, not to back into the wall. So they were taking measures when they were wrecking, not to wreck and back into it. So we're excited about that, of what that is going to be from a safety standpoint. And then with respect to Garage 56, which is, the project, to your point, that we are doing with Chevy and Hendrick Motorsports, to have an entrant and an entry into Le Mans next year, which is really exciting and something that Jim France's father had done back in the mid 70s. And it's a pet project of Jim. He's really excited about it, but we're already seeing some of the effects that could come from the design of that vehicle, particularly as it relates to trying to get better racing and for short tracks and obviously for road courses. The car itself is, it's essentially a sports car. And I'll get out of my depth pretty quickly, but it's, with the bigger brakes, the bigger tires, it's just a really, some of the shortcomings on road courses in particular and short tracks that the old car had, slipping and sliding and guys making mistakes. This car, it doesn't do that. And so I think there's some things that, as we always do, we will continue to iterate to make the racing better. And I think Garage 56 that wasn't the design of what it was to do. The original thought was to bring a stock car to Le Mans and kind of showcase it for the Europeans to see that this is a big, loud, good looking vehicle that's going to run 24 hours. And that's kind of what the original thought process was around the Le Mans project, the Garage 56 project.
Well, like I say, it seems like it's already producing some good results and great information. And to your point, I mean, that's the one thing that, having been around the sport as long as I have and seen the different, I guess I'd call it generation of cars throughout the history of NASCAR, it's always been a work in progress. I mean, you never build a perfect car. I mean, there's no such thing. Even the last generation was not perfected. We kept working on it, and we would continue to work on it as long as it was in competition. So yes, we expect it to get better and better and better. And I mean, but the surprise, I think, for a lot of people, including myself, 19 different winners. I mean, you got a 36 car field, almost, over half the field got to go to victory lane this year. I mean, which is unheard of in our industry.
No, I agree. I mean, if you include All-Star, where Ryan Blaney won, we had 20 winners of our 38 races.
I like that. I like round numbers. I like round numbers.
Set a new record. And I think that was, we were thrilled with the competition of the car, right? It is hard to argue with, 20 different winners in 38 races, to your point, with the 36 car field primarily, kind of week in and week out. So more than half the field won a race. The first 3 rounds of the playoff, we had 3 non-playoff drivers win those races, which is extraordinary. So the car itself, I delivered particularly well. Obviously, the super speedways are always a significant and entertaining racing, but some of the races that we saw in the intermediates, we have never seen racing like that. And again, it was week in and week out. As I said earlier, we've got some work to do on the road courses. We got some work to do on the short tracks, but I'm confident that we're going to do that. But if we could go back to the Coliseum or before that first race and say, hey, you're going to have 20 different winners and you're going to have 5 first-time winners, I'll sign me up for that. It was a great year for us. It was great. And then, it was a little bit hard because, some of the safety issues, with the Kurt Busch's, injury and Alex Bowman's injury, takes a little of the shine off that. We don't ever want to see drivers hurt. We just don't. And it's our responsibility to make sure they're as safe as they can be. And so we're excited about the changes that we'll make to the rear clip and to the bumper. And I think the car will be significantly safer than where it was this year.
Well, another, priority from NASCAR was the schedule. And again, you guys, have been making, over the last 3 years, you made a lot of changes in it. I mean, where is your mindset right now as far as where we are today and where you are looking on down the road? Because again, we're going places where we've never gone before.
Yeah, I think, to that point, next year's our 75th anniversary, Jeff, as you know, and had a lot of discussions with Jim France about racing a street course. And So we will race our first street course next year at Chicago. That took some convincing, right? I think part of the issue really, and the solve for this is the car itself, right? The old car, I don't think we would have had good racing on a street course. It's just, we wouldn't. But I think, particularly given some of the changes that we're looking at, that Chicago street course is going to be competitive, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be something unique and different, obviously, since the first time we would have raced on a street in 75 years. But I'm excited about the schedule variation. What the fans have said is they want schedule variation. And that's what to your point, we've given them over the past couple of years. The 2021 schedule was kind of the largest number of changes we had ever experienced in the sport in the modern era. So I'd say, 51 years.
Right.
That was important, and what we've seen when we do that, when you go to St. Louis or you go to the Coliseum, or when we go to Chicago, or some of these other changes that we've made to the schedule, you see ratings increases and you see sold out facilities, right? And that's really the responsibility that we have to this industry, and to the race fans themselves, and to put on great racing, which I think we've done a good job of. So we're going to continue with schedule variation. Obviously our schedule's been announced for 2023. The big news on that schedule change is really two. One is kind of a nod to a throwback, which is to have the All-Star race go to North Wilkesboro. We were really excited about that. That was for every Chicago street course, for us to be able to do something to recognize the past, particularly on the 75th anniversary of the sport, I think was terrific. And obviously the excitement around that race is terrific, and our partners at Speedway Motorsports will get that facility where it needs to be, and they've got some work to do. But we are confident it's going to be a terrific race, and just the excitement around it is fantastic. And then a month later, a little more than a month, we'll go to the Chicago street course. In 2024, we'll continue to have schedule variation. I don't know what that's going to be, but we are going to take races. If there are facilities that we own, and they're not performing as they should perform, then we need to take that race to somewhere else. Again, that's the promise to the fans and to the sponsors and anyone who's our broadcast partners, anyone who's involved in the sport. That's the promise we have to them. We're going to continue to iterate and innovate around the schedule.
Well, again, I can assure you, I've been keeping an eye on those folks at North Wilkesboro, and they are working their tails off. Everything's looking so great up there. And I think the best thing about it is the buzz in and around Wilkes County as a whole. I mean, they are so excited. In fact, I'm going to be in a Christmas parade this coming weekend, and North Wilkesboro is going to have a float on there, and there's a lot of people, as we like to say around here, going back to our roots. And again, the timing is right. 75 years, and North Wilkesboro, was one of those, foundation tracks. So it really has a great feel to it. And I commend SMI, but more importantly, you guys getting behind it and endorsing it and embracing it, because I think it's going to be a big winner for you this year.
I agree.
Well, 2020 was also a landmark year for NASCAR when you navigate the pandemic, your strategic way you approached it, social justice, several bold initiatives. What do you look at as far as social justice piece right now, and how has this helped NASCAR, forward its diversity, efforts, throughout the series?
Yeah, I think 2020 was a pretty extraordinary year, Jeff, for everyone in our industry. I was struck when on March 13th, when we shut down and left Atlanta, and really no understanding how or when we were going to get back to racing. Those were dark times. And I think if you look at how this industry came together again in under extraordinary circumstances, right? We had to get, for the race teams, the 3 counties where the race teams are, we had to get the counties to allow them to go build race cars. We had to get, talk to governors and, health commissioners and different folks to just get back. And we were able to do it. And so 71 days later, we went to Darlington, South Carolina, and the governor of South Carolina, Governor McMaster, was fantastic and said, we want you back. And that was important to have the first one, because after the first one, it all started to go, right? And then, Governor Kemp and, the governor of Tennessee and, Governor DeSantis in Florida, they all just started to go, right? And then, some of the states that were a little more cautious, right? What I would call the blue states versus the red states, they started to open up as well. And they wanted to get us back. And that was an important thing for us. So being the first major sport back was important. And I remember having conversations with Roger Penske during that time. He and I would speak, every couple of days, I letting him know what we were doing, so we could be in lockstep, because it was important that motorsports had a united front in what we were doing. And that was important. But to the second part of your question, Jeff, was important as well, right? Which is the stance we took on social justice. And for folks around the world, the banning the Confederate flag is, I think they don't really understand probably the importance and the kind of the difficulty for certain individuals that we would do that. But it was important to do. And it was important because there were segments of the population that the symbolism of that flag was not in line with their wanting to participate or feeling welcome at our facilities. So that was important. And the support of Bubba and around Talladega and some of the difficult things that went down there, it was just a very emotional kind of 3-week period in June of 2020. But I think probably one of the most important 3 weeks in our history, because what we have seen is we've seen our existing race fans embrace what they wanted, right? Which is, hey, we want other people to come, and be welcome in our great sport. They do. And they want great racing. And so we've given them great racing. But we've also seen a lot of new fans come to racetrack. So the face of the fan is changing at our facilities. I mean, Jeff, you've seen it when you go to races, it looks different. The crews look different. The drivers look different. The fans look different. The owners look different. And that's the path that we're on. Michael Jordan and Pitbull don't become owners if we didn't take the stance on social justice. And so we're not, as a sport, we're not here to be a leader in social justice. We're not. But we do want to be a leader in diversity, right? And let people understand that we want diverse audiences to participate in our sport, whether they're fans, drivers, owners, whomever. And that's what we're doing. So, we don't want to be a flashpoint for social justice, but we do want to be a welcoming place to have people come to our sport. And that's exactly what's happening. So if you look at our television audience in 2 years, our television audience with people of color, we're up 40%, albeit smaller numbers for sure, but I'll take 40% this year, next year, the following year, because our audience is growing. So if you think about, the 3 key segments for our audience growth right now are women, young people, and people of color. And for 15 years, when I was at NASCAR, all we talked about is, hey, we got to get younger and more diverse. You can say that, but it's a whole lot harder to actually have that become a reality. So you needed a flashpoint, which is June of 2020, to allow those things to happen. And that's what's happened for us. And it's exciting. And we'll continue that growth and let people understand that we want them to come participate in our great sport.
Well, NASCAR has always said we're one big family. And I think now you can say that with an added confidence and an affirmation that this is what we really mean. I mean, we want everybody here. We want you to bring your kids. We want them to grow up in this sport like many of us have and understand what it means when we say, hey, we got your back. We may fight like all cats and dogs come Saturdays and Sundays, but, it's a kind of family way. All said and done, we respect one another. And you can be a fan way. and be just as passionate as an NFL or Major League Baseball, college football fan. And we give them an opportunity. And I agree. In recent years, seeing a renewed effort by families, dads and not just grandparents, I'm talking about moms and dads, to get their kids to a racetrack, to show them the new talent that's coming out. Kyle Larson, for example, I think, he made a big spike at one time right there because he came back, and after his, working to get everything squared away in his life and make things, that fit the way it should within the NASCAR parameters, he's got a lot of fans. And I think that's the kind of stuff that, you can't write it, you can't dream it, it's got to happen. And it's happened in our industry. And I think it's huge that we've been able to do that. And you mentioned the women. We were at a seminar not too long ago there at Charlotte Motor Speedway, with women in motorsports, and it here again, a statement saying that they want to be in motorsports and they want to be in NASCAR, and now we have a platform and I think a better opportunity for them to be successful than ever.
No, I agree. I think, I was struck, I worked for the NFL for almost 14 years. And the sense of community that I felt when I came to NASCAR was unlike anything that they have at the NFL. Listen, the NFL is a great brand and a great sport, and they're a behemoth, but it's not the same. The sense of community, the sense of family that exists in the sport, it's just different. And I think a lot of that has to do with, kind of the traveling circus nature of motorsports, right? Because you travel together, you compete together. To your point, Jeff, you fight, like cats and dogs, but at the end of the day, you're all part of the same community, and you may not have getting to the end goal, people may not take the same road to get there, but they all want the same thing. They want the sport to grow. They want to compete, and they love this sport. And that's, I think that's what's so great about motorsports. It's just so different than stick and ball sports. It's just a different animal. So, and we've seen, talked about ratings increases, but we've seen families and kids and, diverse audiences coming to our racetrack. Our, kind of year over year, our consumer attendance was up over 20%. I'll take the 20% as well.
Stacking those pennies, aren't you? You're stacking those pennies.
Exactly right. I think we had 9 sellouts last year. We had 4. And next year we're going to have, we hope to have 12, 13, 14. And that's what we need to do. And that's, again, that's the promise that we've made to all the partners who participate in this sport. And we've invested significant dollars at our facilities in order to create a better fan experience. It's important. We're by end of next year, all of our facilities, our NASCAR tracks will have Wi-Fi. You go to Talladega, you couldn't make a phone call. You can't get anything in and out of that place. So whatever happened in Talladega, I guess stayed in Talladega, but not anymore. Because this past year at Talladega, you could send videos, you could, do social media, whatever you wanted to do, you can do it. And so, we're going to spend almost $50 million in Wi-Fi next year, upgrading our facilities. It's important to be able to do that because that's the expectations of people when they go to the facility, is that they can post, right? They can communicate to people who are not there and share the great experience that they're having. And so
that's your best advertisement you can buy.
I agree. I agree.
Paul, I'd like to open the here, if you don't mind, if you have a question for Steve right here in regards to this diversity, because I know that, across the different racing series you're associated with also, this is a big thing that's going on within the industry.
Yes, well, thank you. I feel like I'm sitting in a room with 2 people I admire very much, and your accomplishments, both of you, and what you've done here are inspiring to me. And one of the best days of my year, this past year, was going to the Coliseum and looking at the vibrancy of that event and talking to the fans. I walked the perimeter of the Coliseum, but I was there for the first Supercross race way back when, in the 70s. And what I saw was this diverse young audience of people who may have come for the music, but the kids were running up the aisle to go see the race cars, and they were full of joy and expectation. And I realized at that moment when I was standing there looking at it was a group family with young people, that NASCAR has this ultimate weapon to drop into any major metro in the world and tell the story of American racing and what's so special about it. Is there a plan eventually to do what the NFL does and do an all-star or special event internationally with?
I think
the
the
NASCAR
answer,
product?
yeah, I think the answer to that, Paul, is yes. But the question is when. I thought the Coliseum event, not to evade your question, but I will get back to it. I think the Coliseum was something special. It was a proof point for us that you could, in a 4-week period of time, you could build a racetrack inside a stadium, which I believe,
Amazing.
is a proof point for us both domestically and internationally. And obviously I was at that event too, Paul. I was struck by, you talk about different faces and young people, clearly all of that, which was heartwarming. But I have never been to a race where competitors, NASCAR officials, every single person in our industry was happy. I have never been to another race. Usually something goes wrong, right? And
Yeah.
someone's mad about something. There were smiles. Everyone was happy. I'd never seen it. And it was a great event. It was just so fun. We're excited to go back. Is that a long-term thing for us? I don't know. Could we move it to other places? That is a 100-year iconic facility, which is a very cool thing. We actually broke ground. I don't know if you call it breaking ground when you're creating a new racetrack and tearing up a football field, but on the 100-year anniversary of that facility and the groundbreaking of that facility. So that was just a really cool deal for us. But I think internet, to answer your question, I do think international, we've got grassroots series in Canada, Mexico, Europe. We just announced grassroots series, a partnership in Brazil. Grassroots, I think, is an important thing for us, both grassroots in this country, and we really tried to lean in on grassroots in this country because we understand the importance. First NASCAR race I went to, was in Vermont, and I went with my dad when I was 5 years old. That was a short track. It was a quarter mile or a third of a mile asphalt track, and you going to the big tracks, right? Going to Daytona or wherever, that's a different experience, right? But the grassroots is where it's where you learn the passion that is motorsports, the smells, the sights, the sounds, all of it is what we love about motorsports, and then the competitive nature of it, obviously. But I do think internationally there are some opportunities for us, working with our race teams to try to create opportunities outside of these borders. Other series do it, we can certainly do it too. So obviously did an exhibition event in Japan back in the late 90s. And, I don't know what that's going to look like, but, it goes back to schedule variation. And I think it was interesting after the Coliseum and Chicago Street Course, the number of calls that we're getting from people around the world saying, hey, well, we're interested, which is fantastic, right? And that goes back to the reputation, the relevance that the sport now has, right? Whether it's NASCAR or motorsports broadly, and it feels good. But we got a lot of work to do still, and there's tons of opportunity for us, and that's the most exciting part about it.
I wanted to
When you
follow
talk
up.
about that excitement, I got a chance to interview Fernando Giulianelli, the CEO of Brazil Race, I was just kind of blown away with how well organized they are down there. And they got some awesome looking race cars. They got unbelievable car count. And right now, Steve, you guys are racing in 12 different countries in 2023. I mean, you mentioned it, and we've already getting people asking us about, what are your international plans in the future in Mexico and Canada? I mean, you're there. It's just a matter of how much more, or is it going to evolve, and how will it affect, what they're in that country, what can they expect, and what can we expect here in the United States from it?
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of opportunity internationally, Jeff, and O'Donnell and Chad Siegler and the group that runs NASCAR International are they are exploring a lot of different things, and but we're very fortunate because we have significant opportunity domestically, still lots of opportunity, and we'll take advantage of those, and there's lots of opportunity internationally as well. So we'll work with our race teams and our industry to determine what's the best and most meaningful way to grow this sport, because for us, that's our North Star. Like literally, as we are building our business plans, our mission statement is to grow this sport. It's not about profitability. It's growing the sport. And so everything that we do needs to ladder up to that. Because to me, that's what a sanctioning body's responsibility is. First and foremost, and I'm not suggesting that profitability is not important, but it's really about the growth of the sport, finding new fans, entertaining the fans that you have, and nurturing them to want to participate more and engage more in your sport. That's what we do.
Can I ask another question here? Because we see something on racer.com. We track all the metrics, every last metric down, minute detail, really in an effort to try to understand the audience energy. And one of the most amazing things about NASCAR on our racer.com and social platforms, no one touches NASCAR in terms of the surge of energy about a particular story, or sometimes it's a news item about someone being disqualified or a conflict, whatever. The largest traffic days we've ever had have been related to NASCAR stories, where we've had over 200,000, over 300,000 visitors in a single day to our site on a NASCAR story. And what that's driven by is the audience is sharing the story.
Right.
And harnessing that, is there a strategy? Because something's very different about NASCAR fans from the other fans that come to our website. They're almost as if they're your medium.
They are. I think in this era of social media, and social media is important. The medium itself, I think it can be difficult.
Yes.
But I won't get into that. But I do think it is interesting, whether you're talking about, Racer, or you're talking about NASCAR.com or any of these other sites, what things ring the bell. So what we do the same tracking. So we'll have the folks that run NASCAR.com, they'll see what things are working, right? And they'll position things, differently on the page in order to take advantage of what those things are. So you have something, obviously, Ross Chastain makes his move in Martinsville. Okay, that's going to get a few views. But it is interesting, those things that are, Tuesday penalties that come out or whatever it is. And it's an engaged fan base who, wants to talk about the injustices of what NASCAR has done, or others that would suggest that. I find it funny, on the same topic, you have a whole group of people who are saying, I can't believe they did that. That's unfair, right? They shouldn't have done that. And a whole group of people over on the other side saying it should have been more. They should have suspended him for a lifetime, or whatever that might be. It's just but that's what it is, Paul. It's the passion of the audience, right? And I think the cool thing for us, or sports like the NFL that have kind of weekly events, obviously we raced at different times throughout the weekend, but if you think about it as a weekly event, as opposed to a baseball game where you're going to have a baseball game tomorrow and the day after that, or an NBA game every other game, the appointment viewing, I think, is important, but it also provides significant opportunities for us during the week. And that really is the secret sauce for us. And we need to do a better job of engaging the audience, frankly, Monday through Thursday. And that's a stated goal. And I think the way to do that is to create better content. So the USA show race for the championship, I thought was terrific. And, you know, it was a good first pass. I know people, you know, compare it to, you know, what F1 has done and Drive to Survive. And it was the first foray for us. And I think actually not the first, but an important step for us. And I think access to see behind the scenes and understand who these drivers are. I mean, our champion, Joey Logano, I think people have a newfound respect for Joey, right? And he says it himself, you know, when that helmet goes on, he is a different guy. You know, I ran into him last night, you know, he and Brittany, and they're just lovely people. They're just really nice. And he cares about the sport a great deal, and he's a great ambassador for the sport. But, you know, he puts on that helmet and, you know, get out of the way because he's coming. He's a terrific race car driver, obviously. So, but I think this idea of social media and stories that are on, you know, racer.com or NASCAR.com or any of the other outlets that cover the sport, they're so important. But this extension that is social media is important as well, because, you know, at one time, the only place was the outlets themselves. But now these fans are curating their own content, good, bad, other, whatever it might be. But it's, you know, it's here and it's here to stay, but it doesn't take the place of the, in my opinion, of the rich content that comes from people in this industry or media specifically that drive interesting stories.
I'm glad to hear that.
And challenge, right? Challenge us, challenge sanctioning body, challenge race teams, drivers. That's what they do. And it keeps everyone on their toes and moving things forward. And I think that's important.
Well, thank you again, because Kelly Crandall, who covers NASCAR for Racer, she does a terrific job.
She does.
You know, I'm always pleased to see that when we do the monthly stats, she's at the very top of the stat chart, and your audience drives this. And our audience has gotten significantly younger and more female during the last year. And something profound is happening. I'm seeing NASCAR apparel on young people in the LA market. They're wearing NASCAR as fashion. Something's changed.
No, I agree. And it's, and I think it builds on itself. So we take the race for the championship, over 60% of the audience were women, and about 15 years younger than the folks that are watching, you know, on Sundays. So it's important for us to continue that content, right? It's important for us to continue to feed those, you know, kind of fledgling new fans, but not do it at the expense of the existing fans, which I think is really important. And I think we didn't do a very good job of that, you know, kind of in the mid 2000s. We were so interested in finding that new fan that we kind of turned our back a little bit on the existing fans, and we went away from, you know, grassroots and short tracks, but we are back, you know, kind of in full force, because it's important to be able to do that. And what do our existing fans, longtime fans want? They want great racing, so we're giving them that. They want young, they want drivers throughout the spectrum, young drivers, older drivers that are compelling, right? So the number of new race fans that Ross Chastain has is incredible. And the number of fans that don't like him, that's great too. You know, we don't want people who are straddling in the middle and people are apathetic. We want people to want to cheer for this guy and hate that guy, and because that's what the passion of motorsports is about. And that's what we're seeing. And I think our existing fans are thrilled, or our, you know, longtime fans are thrilled with the direction of, for the most part, the direction that the sport's going in. They love the new car, the competition on the racetrack, you know, these up and coming drivers, young drivers competing with, you know, first ballot Hall of Famers, and we have a lot of them, frankly, you know, Harvick and, you know, Kyle Busch.
I have a question for both of you, and I'll step back. we see something else too that I don't see often in our metrics, because I look at the metrics every day, multiple times. Stories about crew chiefs generate sometimes. A NASCAR crew chief is more of a celebrity than a top tier driver in other racing series. Why is that?
I'll let Jeff answer the question.
Do you have
can-
some
you
secret
can step
sauce
right
you're
into that
sprinkling
one.
on your crew chiefs? Because obviously I knew you. You're one of the first really famous crew chiefs, but people making the car go fast, Jeff. Why is this?
I think part of it is, honestly, I think it's because we were easily accessible along with the driver back in the early days. I mean, a lot like with Dale Lemon and Richard Petty. When Richard Petty was signing autographs, Dale Lemon was right there beside him because he couldn't leave till Richard got done anyway. So he might as well sign, people wanted his autograph also. So he became an icon, not because he was just winning races, but he was, he was a guy that people just liked to talk to. Same way with Leonard Wood. When I came along with Darrell Waltrip, his personality kind of rubbed off on me. And I think that I picked up a lot of fans because I was willing to, to talk to people. I'd be willing to sign autographs also. And a lot of the crew chiefs today, they interact with the general public. I mean, I think Rodney Childers is a great example of that. I mean, he is, not only showing what he and his family are doing, but he's showing the passion he has for racing because he's going back to start, running his own, grassroots, short track program because he likes to play a little bit. And you see this across the board, I think more so. And on top of that, let's face it, Steve, this, drivers are so busy sometimes doing things for NASCAR and their sponsor, they're not readily available. So who do they fall back to? The crew chief. And so sometimes crew chiefs are put up, in front of audiences and needed to, to go in and fill in or, be a part of a television program. So they're getting fan following just because they've been exposed. I mean, that's the whole thing is you got to realize, and Steve touched on it with Talladega example. At one time, you couldn't get anything out of Talladega unless you had a carrier pigeon. And nowadays, mass media is making it a lot easier and social media for fans to interact and connect with their favorite drivers, but also with their favorite crew chiefs.
Yeah, but it's a whole other layer of giving a reason for people to care. And I've always, someone once told me that the hardest thing in the world is to get someone to pay attention to something. The second hardest thing in the world is to hold their attention. And what I've noticed, some of what we talked about today, NASCAR holds the attention midweek better than any series we cover, period. No one comes close. But the content that's holding the attention isn't all about the race car drivers. It's about the people that work on the race cars. It's almost as if we're talking to head coaches here, and there's something very different about the cultural dynamic in NASCAR that really works. I hope there's more of it. I think that the depth of a race team is, especially in NASCAR, very visible activity for the team. And it's a very American thing to acknowledge the contribution of the team in a human and personal way. And that's an advantage for NASCAR compared to many other forms of motorsport. That layer is not as visible.
Yeah, I think, Paul, I think it's the size of the audience. We have a large audience, and great, large fan base and engaged fan base, but they're thirsty to understand what's happening, right? So if it's not just about Joey Logano, it's like, well, why did Paul Wolf make the decisions he made that enabled Joey to use his talent to go out and win the race or win the championship? But, Paul and that crew, they're a massive part of the success. And I think that's hard for people who really don't understand motorsports to understand that the importance of the entire team that makes this thing go fast, right? Guys back at the shop, guys that are at the racetrack, crewing the car, or the crew chief and the strategic decisions that he's making. I think people just say, well, hey, listen, Ross Chastain made a really cool move, and it was all about Ross Chastain. Well, you know what? Ross was in a position because of his, his crew all year in order to make that championship 4. Now he makes a crazy move, right? And, almost blacks out or whatever the hell he was doing in turns 3 and 4. And he, it's something special, but it's starts with Justin Marks, who I know was on here yesterday, and permeates through that entire organization, right? But our race fans are thirsty for the why. Like, how did we get here? What is it that makes them go fast? Why did you make that decision? What are you doing midweek to prep the car in order to be ready to unload it when you get to Martinsville or wherever it might be? And that's great. We need to give them more of that, frankly. I think that there's a lot more opportunity to do that. And I think content is the key to be able to do it.
Yeah, I think the preparation and what it takes to get to Sunday is a story that would resonate very, very well, because there's a lot of back work from, simulations to engineering decisions. I mean, all the way down to the part that when you think about the very beginning of NASCAR, we're talking about stopwatches and clipboards. And today we're talking about, multi computers, engineers, war rooms. I mean, when I talk about a war room, you think about every one of the major organization has a group of people sitting back at the shop helping to, keep up with the rest of what's going on. I mean, they're not just watching their car, they're watching other cars, and they're trying to figure out what strategy is ahead of the time so they can get off sequence or get an advantage by not having to beat somebody off a pit road, but by stopping earlier or even by stopping later. It depends on what the scenario is. And that chess game is fascinating in its own right.
Yeah, say one thing.
Well, Steve, before we get going, I mean, I know we're starting to run down here on time. I need to ask you about one of the probably one of the number one questions we've had here from some of our attendees has to do with EV, electric vehicles. What's the future in NASCAR as far as the timeline? We know that, a lot of the OEMs are already working, got electric cars. So where do they come into play when it comes to the NASCAR timeline?
Yeah, I think the timeline, let's start with this. We are working with our OEM partners. So I know that Ford and Toyota are going to be on here later today. But Ford, Chevy, and Toyota all have an interest in EV, based on where their product lines are today or where they're going. And we think the good news for us is that we've got lots of different series that we can play in. So we are working with our OEM partners to explore what an EV series would be. We have talked publicly that we are potentially going to do an exhibition series, potentially as soon as 2024. We'll see where that goes. There's a lot of interest, obviously, from our existing OEs. There's a lot of interest outside of our existing OEs. And the reason why we're doing it, obviously, it's important to our OEM partners, but is there a market for it, right? So you've got Formula E out there and other series around the world that are using either hybrid technology or using all electric or battery electric. We need to make sure, as kind of the number one motorsport in this country, that we are exploring what that could look like. So is it going to be a part of our future? And racing 36 weeks a year, I have no idea. But I think it's important for us to understand whether our race fans in particular are interested in an EV series for NASCAR. And does that work with its brand? I do think noise as part of that is going to be important. Noise is a big part of our sport. And so it's going to sound ridiculous, but manufacturing noise, I think is going to be an important part for who we are. What that looks like, is it throaty? Those things will all be worked out, but I do think noise will be a part of it. And we're about entertainment. And so, we're not a one-stop technology platform, right? We're about entertaining race fans. But I think that finding opportunities for new race fans that might enjoy a battery electric vehicle series is something that, we think we need to invest in order to explore whether it's going to work. If it works, great. And we will have potentially a fourth national series or something that we can, export internationally or wherever that might be. But it's really the race fans are going to determine whether this is going to work or not. But we think it's important to work with our OEs and ultimately our race teams, to look at this and see if it's viable.
Well, I mean, it's like you said, you think about it on this kind of, I would consider logic. That's the reason why we have dirt series. That's the reason why we have short track series. That's the reason why I have modified series. Everybody gets an opportunity to pick and choose what they'd like to watch. But at the same time, we all across the board can see where the power horses are. You might say like Formula One, or where it's World Rally, whether it's IndyCar, whether it's NASCAR, the Cup Series. I mean, everybody, once again, has a choice, and not that are not obvious future of the, I guess you might say, the world. It's just how much of it do they want to? It's like you say, I don't think anything will ever replace start your engine or, driver start your engines and not be excited about that roar.
I agree.
Steve, it really has been a pleasure to have you here today, because I know, again, once that you have such a busy schedule. But before I let you get away, I want you to know I was watching TV last night, and I was watching Tom Cruise movie, Ghost Protocol, Mission Impossible. And it made me think about the original name. It's perfect because it made me think about a man who took on a mission that was virtually impossible. And in the last 4 years, you have been able to keep pulling off, everything that needed to be done for this organization, for this company. I mean, this sport owes a lot of gratitude to you. And I mean that sincerely, because you keep doing missions that are impossible each and every day, and keep moving keep moving this bar higher and higher for our sport in such a great way. And I really enjoyed talking to you. I enjoy seeing you want to get around the racetrack or an event and get a chance to see you, but you do a great job, sir.
Well, thank you for those incredibly kind words. Very humbling. So we have, it does take a village, and we've got, this industry is, as I said before, it's unlike anything else where I've worked. It's just really talented people who care about our sport, and we'll keep pushing it.
Thank you very much, Steve. Great honor to have you on the Race Industry Week 2022.
Registering on EPARTRADE is easy. To start, click on the Join for Free button on the homepage. First, search your company to see if it's already in our database. If you see your company on the list, click on it to select it. Then, choose Claim Company if you are one of the decision makers, an owner, marketing person, or main company contact. Or choose Join Company if you are an employee, and press Continue. If you couldn't find your company in our database, select Register a New Company. On the following page, fill out your name, email, phone number, job title, and choose a secure password. If you chose Register a New Company, you'll need to choose your business type. Select Supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose Racing Business if you're looking to source new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose Race Team if you own or are a member of a professional race team. Then, enter your company name. Please provide a website, Facebook page, or LinkedIn if you have one, and choose to either claim or join the company. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Finally, click Register Now and your registration will be submitted for approval. An email will be sent to your inbox. Please confirm your email address and you will be approved shortly. Welcome to EPARTRADE.